Charlie, can you hear us?
Yeah, except I have a strange echo, so I might come back. Is that any better? No. I'll jump out and come back. Try it again.
Go ahead.
Are you back, Charles? Can you hear us?
I am. Sorry about that. I think I accidentally joined twice, and one of me is more than enough. So there we go.
There we go. All right, it's 6:01 and I'll call the meeting to order. You could do the public comment expectations, please, Daniel.
Sure. Commenters must raise their hand, be acknowledged by the chair, to speak. Individual comments may be cut off after 3 minutes, and phone participants press *6 to mute, unmute, and *9 to raise your hands.
Right. So for our old business, we've got meeting minutes from the last meeting. You guys had a chance to look over them?
Yep, I've had a chance to look over them, and I motion that we pass the meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right. Next, let's do items not on the agenda before we get into major business. Is there anybody from out there? Mary?
We're signed up. I believe this young lady is first,
Oh, is there
but it's on the agenda.
Bro,
These are for
official now?
items not on the agenda.
okay. Rachel. Yeah.
Is the co-op already on the agenda?
I don't see one.
Are you talking about the proposed campground co-op? Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you
I think she wants. to
Other
speak
than
on
that?
COLA.
Okay. Mary, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mary Rapar Stevenson, a few things. First, I think the city needs a policy about cutting down trees that are in the city's right of way. There have been some really nice big trees recently that have been chopped down, and I oppose that. I like our big trees. And there was a huge tree on the corner of School and Hot Springs, Alameda, and that was chopped down a couple of years ago. So I think we need to inform our citizens about where their right of way ends and where the city's begins. The old trees were planted where they were planted, and some of them fall in the city's right of way. And I love old trees. They've been around for a long time and they've survived the winds. So I think we need to have a good tree policy within the city limits. I sent you all the LDB beverage ask. They want to be able to dump their stuff into the sewer system. And as we all remember, those of us who have long memories, they were one of the companies down at the port that killed our permit. And now we have a $15 million plan for which I pay $188.65 every month, and it makes me hurt. But that's, the price of living in civilization. They're asking for a modification of their permit in order to be able to, again, stream their organic matter into the sewer system. I think we need to be very careful, and I'm going to be making comments. They extended the 30-day period because the paper had printed the wrong information about where to find the permit request. So as soon as it's in our paper, then there'll be a 30-day comment period. And I think the city needs to make comments on this and be very careful that we're not back in the same situation we were in, 5-7 years ago. And the other thing is the Cascade transmission proposal, which would put a electric transmission line in the middle of the Columbia River, is out for comments. Now, these are SEPA comments that FSEC is putting out. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers comments for their scoping period were done in February. This is a new scoping period, and I urge everyone who's concerned that we work very hard to kill this project because it's dangerous, it's environmentally unsound, and it's stupid. So please make comments on it as soon as you see it in our paper of record, the Skamania Pioneer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Ezra Hummer.
Excuse me, yes, I'm here to speak about the item on the agenda.
Okay. All right, so anyone online, by phone? Okay. Well, we'll move to item 2, which is the continuance of hearing for CUP 2025-003. Do a appearance of fairness doctrine. Go ahead and guide us in that.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, if you're going to vote tonight on this, you need to be asked the questions as to, 1, whether or not you have an interest in this project. Anyone? Number 2, since the last meeting, has anyone had any discussions with the applicant that were not recorded?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
Has anybody had any conversations with any of the folks that are disputing the application?
I had one conversation. I am a part-time employee at the Skamania Lodge.
Okay.
And so I am just stating that.
Perfect. So you currently work as a part-time employee?
Correct.
Okay. Will that impact any decision-making that you have to?
It will not.
Are you provided any compensation for voting one way or the other as part of your employment with the lodge?
I am not.
Has anybody since the last meeting received any compensation for this application itself?
No.
No.
No. Does anybody have any information that they're sitting here today that they know that other council member or commission members do not know that would be relevant to the application itself?
You know,
Do not.
All right, so I would then say that based on the answers, we have an appearance of fairness to proceed with the application.
okay, here's a problem. I do a staff.
Sure. The only thing I have to add, that I haven't already in the last couple of hearings is, in response to the letter we received from the lawyer, I just wanted to explain my process with the SEPA. So the first thing we do when we get an application and we deem it complete is go through and look at all the necessary steps. So, first thing we do is look and say, does it need a SEPA? And I look at the SEPA exemptions. Because I'm not gonna ask an applicant to pay hundreds of dollars for something that I can exempt. So I found an exemption that we have used in our office several times. I reached out to other planners that mentor me on their advice because, this isn't one we do very often. And they agree that they've seen the SEPA exemption used in the same way, which was under a WAC for minor new construction flexible thresholds. Talks about recreation buildings, projects that are less than 4,000 square feet with associated parking spots. And so the bathhouse proposed is less than 4,000 square feet. And the associated parking with that bathhouse is less than 20 spots. The overflow parking for a parking lot that's allowed is less than 20 spots. So to me, it fit in just my experience as a planner. And so that's why I didn't ask for SEPA, and there's no critical areas on the land that meet the threshold for a SEPA. And all the development is in areas already cleared, so there won't be any clearing. Some of you went and saw that. The amount that's needed to fix the roads is very minimal. So that's why I didn't do one. And then I wrote in the staff report, that SEPA wasn't required. Going forward, we talked as a planning team that will cite that exemption. WAC 197.11/05 says we don't have to, but we will for you going forward. We're used to working with hearing examiners that are law professionals that just, know. So we haven't been questioned, but it's, working with the city, we're learning, so we'll do that going forward. So I just wanted you to know where I was coming from on that piece. And that's all I have.
To follow up with the staff report, just so this commission understands, the city is different than the county in that when a CUP application comes before the commission, you are the final say. If you approve or deny, it does not go to the city council for review. The next step is to go to a LUPA, L-U-P-A hearing, that would be on the Superior Court. So you have the ultimate decision-making under our ordinances as drafted today. Just, it's a reminder of your process for where you are. Nobody's gonna look over your shoulder on the next level up, the city or city council, but either the applicant or any interested party who's been aggrieved or feel they've been aggrieved has the right to submit a LUPA petition, which would then reevaluate it in front of a judge under the same terms that you guys are looking at. Legal process for you to understand.
I'll also add that I met with the SEPA planner on Thursday after I received the letter to verify my approach. And they agreed it's been used many times. So it's been used across the state, maybe not here, but it's been used that way across the state. But as a lawyer will tell you that what it comes down to is how it's argued in court if it goes to court. But, and then we learn, but that was my approach.
We want to hear from the applicant.
I prefer maybe to hear public comments first. Maybe I can address some of those issues if anything comes up.
Sure. Well, we'll open the meeting to public comment. Is there anybody that has a comment? I'll start with Rachel, since you were first on the sign-in sheet.
Forgive me, I'm nervous. My name is Rachel Lair, and I live less than a half mile from the proposed site as the crow flies. And I'm kindly asking that you deny this application for permit. The proposal is being described as a primitive campsite connected to a hop farm, if I'm not mistaken. But the actual proposal is much larger than that. Seems to be 17 campsites on approximately 3.2 acres, up to 6 people per campsite, which means this property could potentially have over 100 campers at one time. This isn't just a neighbor having a few guests. It's not just a small farm use. It's a campground. And frankly, I also question the word farm. If it's truly a hop farm, where's the farm supposed to happen if within the same 3.2 proposed acres of campsites and vehicles and dogs and a bathroom or shower, trash, a fire area, parking, where are you going to have a farm and all of these people potentially? My biggest concern would be the fire risk. This property is not just sitting in the middle of a cleared field surrounded by pavement and water like Skamania Fairground Campground. It's in a fairly treed area close to homes, including mine, close to Skamania Lodge, businesses, the Rock Cove Assisted Living Facility, and the larger Gifford Pinchot National Forest. If a fire starts, it's not just the applicant's property at risk. The risk immediately extends to our nearby neighborhood. The proposed campground rules themselves show why it's a concern. With the LPG community fire pit, possible recreational wood fires, generator use, dogs, trash, quiet hours, stays of up to 14 days. It's not just rules for a small garden or nursery. It seems to be campground operating rules. And campground rules only work if everybody follows them perfectly every time. One cigarette, one ember, one firework, as we've seen with the Eagle Creek fire, can't undo those kinds of things. The staff report also shows that emergency access could pose a real issue. Doesn't seem to just be a casual, low impact use area. It seems to be something that will be taken full advantage of by those using the facility. And beyond the fire, it changes the character of my neighborhood, which again is right there. Those of us who live nearby in that neighborhood, we know the normal flow of traffic. We know the normal cars. And when something is off, we notice it. And it's part of what makes my neighborhood feel safe and stable, especially, and I'm sure I can speak for myself and other neighbors in the area whose husbands work very odd hours being firefighters and working at the dam. I'd like to go to sleep in peace at night, not thinking that there's, potentially who knows who just a half a mile away. This proposal would change that, introducing a rotating group of unfamiliar overnight campers and late night activity right around the corner from me. Last year, our neighborhood already had some small break-ins, so it's not an imaginary concern. Approving this would increase the uncertainty for those of us who live in the immediate vicinity, not just across town, but somebody very close by. I'm not saying that every camper will be a problem, but the commission is not being asked to approve the best case scenario. You're asking to approve the actual risk. And the risk is not equally carried. The risk would be carried by us, the surrounding neighbors. The conditional use standards require the commission to consider the public health, safety, property values, harmony with the area, conformity with adopted plans. And based on the proposal in front of you, I don't believe that those findings can honestly be made. Our neighborhood is stable, the campsite is not. There may be places where a campground makes sense, but within that heavily treed area connected to our lovely forest and our neighborhood so close by, it's not a place for such a campground. And I respectfully ask that you deny the permit.
Rachel, before you sit down, for the record, would you just state your address?
Yes, sir. 136 Northwest Osprey Ridge Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Next on there, I believe, is Ezra Hummer.
Sure. Would you mind if I put my chair here so I can use the table? Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm not as eloquent standing as speaking as the former speaker. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ezra Hammer. I am the attorney mentioned previously, so forgive me for the lengthy letter in the file. Appreciate all of you taking the time out of your schedules to volunteer here tonight. I am here on behalf of Terrapins Owner LLC, the owner of the Skamania Lodge. And our letter was submitted into the record on Friday, for your convenience. So I'm gonna kind of go over a couple of broad-based themes here, but as a foundational issue, the application has been submitted before you is incomplete to the point where the planning commission does not have the information necessary to make the critical findings, which you must, and the applicant has not met their burden of proof, which they are obligated to do in order to allow you to make said findings. I am going to talk about SEPA first, and I appreciate planning's comments on the delineated exemption that has been identified. Unfortunately, that exemption is inappropriate for a number of reasons. Before I get to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the SEPA process, just so you understand kind of how this works broad-based in the state of Washington. As a foundational issue, when a permitting jurisdiction receives an application, they need to determine kind of how that works in the SEPA process. And it kind of opens up a branch, if you will. The first is identifying a delineated exemption. These are exemptions either found in statutes or the administrative rules, or if the jurisdiction has adopted their own exemptions that comply with the statutes and delineated rules, or they need to require the applicant to, as staff mentioned, spend money to analyze the environmental conditions of the site so that the permitting jurisdiction can make the necessary determination regarding whether or not there is a potential significant impact. And as was mentioned, that just didn't occur here. So we've heard tonight that the exemption that's been identified is that for a structure of less than 4,000 square feet associated primarily with schools or offices, with less than 20 parking spaces. So that fails for three reasons. First, the site plan that you've received before you does not delineate the number of parking spaces. If I pull up the site plan, you will see there are two areas identified for parking. There's also commentary in the application itself, despite the fact that it's fairly sparse, that parking will occur at each campsite. There is no number of parking spaces there, and yet each campsite is allowed to hold 6 individuals. We have 17 campsites. If you multiply that modestly by 2, you far exceed the 20. And then there's a secondary delineated parking space. So you have no evidence in front of you that there will be less than 20 parking spaces on the site. Additionally, you have no evidence in front of you that the structure or structures will be less than 4,000 square feet. The site plan does not include dimensions. And so you cannot make findings that that structure is less than 4,000 square feet. Absent the applicant proving that, you simply don't know. The third reason that the SEPA exemption fails is that there actually is an exemption for campsites in the SEPA WAC. And that is for campsites that do not allow for off-road vehicles that are less than 12 campsites in size. That is the appropriate campground SEPA exemption. And you don't have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose. If you're a campground, you either meet that standard or you don't. And here you have a campground that is greater than 12 campsites and has no evidence in the record that it will not support off-road commercial vehicles. So simply put, the exemption that was raised here tonight is not appropriate for this. And because of that, you have no environmental analysis in the record that can bolster any of your findings. So if you were to end up approving this, you're creating a major vulnerability with regards to the environmental clearance because that evidence is simply not in the record. Now, I'm not saying that a significant environmental impact will occur here, but I'm saying you don't have the evidence to determine that it will not. And that is your obligation as the deciding authority. Putting aside the SEPA piece, we need to talk about the actual criteria that you need to adhere to and make findings pursuant to in order to allow this to happen. And the way that this works with land use applications is that the applicant bears the burden of proof. So they are supposed to submit to you evidence to make 4 discrete findings, and they have submitted evidence to support none of those findings. Additionally, there could be a scenario where the city unilaterally decides to make the findings on behalf of the applicant, but that has not occurred here. The staff report provides several sentences for the 4 criteria, but no findings other than conclusory statements. And that's completely understandable. The staff could not extrapolate out how these findings could be made because the applicant failed to provide the evidence in the first instance. And so you simply do not have that information in front of you. I'm going to go over them one at a time, just so you understand all sets of findings that you would need to make in order to approve this and understand the underlying evidence you would need to have in front of you in order to make that. The first is that there will be no risk to public health and safety. Again, this is a campground that's going to accommodate over 100 people. We have evidence in the record that they're going to provide 2 bathrooms. That is 1/4 the recommended standard that's included in the WAC for campgrounds. So you have no evidence that 1/4 the number of recommended bathrooms is appropriate for 102 people. You have no evidence as to the standard or sizing of the septic system, so you don't know whether or not it can accommodate it. And as somebody who camps frequently, I can tell you that that number of bathrooms is going to create issues, and that's going to create issues on the site and for adjacent property owners as people relieve themselves because of the lack of bathrooms. We don't have that. There's also no evidence about trash receptacles or food storage. This is an area that has frequent animal-human interactions, and absent the proper storage of trash and food on site, those will increase, and that will lead to impacts to public health and safety. The fact that there are no trash cans delineated also flies in the face of the WAC standards for campgrounds. Moving on, the second set of findings that you would need to make once you've determined that there would be no public health and safety impacts is that there could be no impact on the values of neighboring properties. You've heard testimony tonight by a neighboring property owner who has expressed her concern and explained to you the impacts associated with the project and how that will impact her property values. The applicant has provided no evidence to the contrary. So I'm going to bolster what was previously said. We're bringing in 102 people to a campground that lacks adequate bathroom and trash receptacle facilities, that is in a low-density residential neighborhood, and has no information in the record regarding noise pollution, light pollution, how fires are going to be effectively managed, or other critical features of a campground that would ensure that there aren't impacts to the existing residential community. Absent information regarding noise and lights and the management of campgrounds, that's a very difficult finding for you to make. Additionally, as I mentioned previously, there are no dimensions on the site plan. So you have no idea how big these campgrounds are or how close they are to each other. Now, what we know is that campgrounds that have campsites that are too close together can create challenges. We also have no information with regards to what type of structures could be brought to the campground. We don't know if this is going to accommodate RVs. I don't see RV hookups here, but there's no information that RVs couldn't come. And we don't know what other sort of camping structures could be brought to the site. So that presents a scenario where you could have structures that lead to a less than structured campground that would have impacts on the neighbors. And again, you've heard evidence that those impacts could occur, and you've seen no evidence to the contrary. So you would need to overcome that hurdle and determine that there could be no impacts to neighboring property values. The third is similar. It speaks to the harmony in the surrounding area. Again, you've heard testimony from a neighbor that this will impact the harmonious nature of the surrounding neighborhood, and you have no evidence to the contrary, right? We have parking that can occur on site. Again, I think conservatively, you're looking at far over 20 parking spaces that would need to occur. I don't know where those are going on the property because there are no dimensions. And absent evidence that they will be parked on the property, the assumption is it's reasonable to assume that they will be parked on the public right of way. And you have no evidence that the parking of that many vehicles on the public right of way will not cause impacts to the surrounding harmonious nature of the community. Additionally, there is no traffic analysis that's been provided with this. So we don't know how many cars are coming to and going from the campgrounds. There's no information that it will be one car and that everyone's going to carpool, or that it's going to be 102 cars and everybody is going to come separately. There is no evidence in the record that tells you that. And absent your ability to understand that, you need to assume that there will be impacts to the surrounding neighborhood from a traffic and transportation standpoint. You would need to overcome that assumption, and the applicant would need to demonstrate evidence to the contrary in order for you to even make that finding. Finally, you need to make findings that the project is fully consistent with the comprehensive plan, the zoning code, the transportation plan, and all the pieces that make up the regulatory framework that exists in Stevenson. I did a cursory search of your comprehensive plan policies that apply to this project. There are no findings in the record that support that. So you have no evidence that compliance with the comprehensive plan can occur with this project. I'm not saying it can't. I'm saying you do not have the evidence and the applicant simply has not provided it. Additionally, you have delineated requirements in the code that talk about the features of a site plan that you need to see in order to make a finding for a conditional use permit. This site plan is deficient. It does not have dimensions on it for the third time. That is a bare requirement here. You need to understand the size of the things that you are approving on the property in order to approve it, and you do not have that evidence in the record. So you need to overcome those assumptions again and say that the comprehensive plan, all of its policies and goals have been met. The municipal code, all of the criteria in the code have been met, and the transportation plan has been satisfied. And again, you can't do that absent some sort of traffic memo to explain to you how many trips are going to come to and from the site. So that's the framework that we're in tonight. And again, there is not sufficient evidence on the record for you to make findings necessary to approve this project. We're missing a SEPA checklist. I've explained to you that the exemption that was mentioned tonight is not appropriate and is deficient for 3 reasons. Secondly, the site plan meets the bare standards of the municipal code. Third, there is no traffic analysis. Fourth, forgive me, there's no sanitation, sewer, or trash storage plan. Fifth, there's no fire safety plan. There's a couple of bullet points provided to you by the fire chief, but there's no explanation of how fire is going to be properly managed on the site. And sixth, for all the planners and us, there's just no narratives that explain how these findings are going to be made. So you can sit here tonight and deliberate and make detailed findings that meet each one of those 4 criteria, or you can send the applicant back to the drawing board and have them go through the normal land use process where they make the findings, the draft findings necessary, provide the evidence necessary for staff to adequately review and analyze and make a recommendation on the project, so that when the planning commission makes its decision, it is fully supported by evidence in the record. Again, we ask that you deny this project based on the insufficiency of the application that's before you tonight, so that the applicant start at the beginning and go through the process in a more structured fashion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, want to, Mary?
Thank you. I'm just going to reiterate what I said last time we had this discussion at the last planning commission. The residential area that's in that part of town is a residential area. And I asked, if you're going to be extending the commercial district, do you really want to do that into that suburban residential zoning? People bought those properties for their quiet, for where they're located, off the beaten path. And I was just up there the other day, and it is quiet up there. So again, putting a commercial or extending the commercial zone is not something that I think needs to go into the suburban residential zoning. And the attorney raised some very good points, and I really appreciate that. It's always good to learn more about projects. This just isn't the right thing for this area. I wouldn't want a campground near my home. And the traffic study, I think, is a really important detail. People bitch and moan about 14 and all our side streets already because tourist season has started. You want to add 100 people more to a area that's supposed to be residential? I don't think so. So I think there's a lot more work to be done on this application, and we need to know way, way more than we do at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Wes, do you wanna?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, so much for all the time on this. I'm not here to tell you guys what you need to make the decision on this. I'm here to provide any additional information you do need to make a decision on this, whether it's approving this as it stands or with conditions. I'd just like to remind everyone that this property, which if the lodge chose to not deal with any of these uses that are permittable on my property, if they chose to not have to deal with that like they are right now, they were welcome to have purchased that property when it was for sale, and then we wouldn't be sitting here. I purchased that property, and the property's value was fixed on the different things that were permittable, and then also conditionally use permittable on that property. And not approving this devalues my property. And, you know, for those of you that have been to my property, it was late enough in the day where, you know, maybe camping, maybe you could envision it not harmoniously meshing with the surroundings. But you have to remember that I chose, you know, the property that my wife and I own that we live in is SR zoning. We are not trying to put campsite or campsites on that property because there's neighbors here, 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 and here. Our only neighbor, only structure that's anywhere near my property is the lodge maintenance yard. 7 in the morning, those mowers fire up or earlier. That is, you know, what would be harmonious in that setting. So, you know, I really feel like there's no chance of this property making more noise than the lodge maintenance yard. There is no chance of this property making more noise than the lodge wedding events. No chance. I can hear the DJ's voice perfectly. I could script what he's saying from our house all the way down on Rock Creek. And this property is closer. There's no chance that we're going to make more noise. If anyone thinks that we're going to make more noise, I would be happy to entertain any conditions that you feel would make that a non-issue. Whether it's reducing the number of sites. I know Tony was alluding to maybe he wasn't excited about 17, but what would you feel comfortable working with? You know, what would you need to justify the fact that you're putting the restrooms in and, you know, all those expenses, going to all those expenses. But I would just like to remind everyone that lot that the lodge could have bought, that I did buy, previously was approved by this plan commission for 10 lots, subdivided into 10 lots. I have all the drawings, all the papers, all the documentation. This was many years ago, but it was approved for 10 lots. 10 lots, all with ADUs. Every single one of those lots could potentially have a fire pit. Every single one of those lots could have 2 cars, 4 cars. All the studies were done to approve that. That is, the previous owner of that property was looking for way above market value for the property, selling it with all of that documentation. And there's no way that traffic from, you know, this campsite is going to affect Foster Creek more than 10 separate lots, all potentially with ADUs. Yeah, there's just no way. And you know, as far as this particular site plan, I know, you know, maybe some in this room have never seen a site plan before, never seen a scale, but you don't actually have to put dimensions on everything when there's a scale on the site plan, which is right here. And you just put your ruler up on that, boom, you know exactly the size of all these different campsites. So everything here does have a dimension associated with it based on the scale. You know, as far as, I mean, this is my first time applying for a conditional use permit. This is obviously Plan Commission's first time dealing with conditional use permit for campground. You know, we're all just trying to work through this. You know, someone might want to point out that there's not enough bathrooms. The number of bathrooms that are on the site plan were given to me. Those were given to me through the county, through the public health department. You know, there's items that are conceptual on the site plan, the leach field for the septic, the size of the tanks, all that stuff, that is all gonna come out in the wash during the actual permitting process to actually build this restroom, put the tanks in the ground, to run the leach fields. All that sizing is gonna come out in the actual build process or application for the actual permit to build. And if we just back up, and this approval should be conceptually based, knowing that I'm gonna follow every single guideline, that whether it's fire and safety, whether it's, you know, the restroom facilities and whatnot, all of these items are gonna be followed to the T through the build process, through the application for these specific, you know, for the one structure, for the, you know, septic system, the number of sites. You know, just jotting down a couple of notes here. As I mentioned, I understand that this is the first time this gentleman's been to one of these meetings, but I have mentioned that these 17 sites, those and these 2 additional parking spots where the trash dumpsters are labeled right here on the site plan, and recycling. These 17 sites are the parking spots. There's no one else that's going to be on this property. Those of you that have been there, there's a turnaround horseshoe. There's not going to be cars lying around that. This is the maximum capacity, whether these people are camping or just visiting the nursery to harvest their hops at the end of the season or maintain their hops. So there's not going to be 17 sites, 2 cars per site, then the random person that shows up in the middle of the night that wants to camp with their friends. That's not happening. Again, you guys know that this is going to be a very select group. I'm going to know every single person that shows up here by name, first and last name. They're going to know me, and they are going to be joined the membership of cooperative and the hop nursery, and not just random public folks. And, you know, I'm not stealing any potential folks that would frequent the lodge. These are going to be a whole new batch of people that I'm trying to bring, you know, to Stevenson to enjoy something that has never been done before, cultivating your own hops. And as far as I know, that's never been an option. And everyone here, you know, I'd say probably the most typical scenario would be, you go wine tasting, you drive out to, you drive east 45 minutes to go wine tasting. How fun would it be to stay on that property after you went wine tasting? Or if you were helping cultivate the vineyard, if you were working the vineyard or somehow volunteering at the vineyard, how fun would it be to actually really immerse yourself in that whole process by staying there, getting up and doing the same thing the next morning? That's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm not trying to drag a bunch of folks that are going to come out and camp in this one spot one time and make a buck off them and hope they don't make a bunch of noise. These are going to be people that are repeat customers, members, frequenting the place, not a bunch of randoms. And if this number of sites, as I also mentioned, if there was any time, and the Wilbanks, the only neighbors that actually see my driveway, that could actually in any way be bothered by this campsite, are for this. They've been here at every single meeting up to this one. They've been here and they're okay with it. And they know, and we've talked. if there's too much going on and it's disrupting their life, then I will scale this all back without anyone telling me that I need to do this. I will do all this on my own. I'm not trying to make, you know, a mess of my little section of Foster Creek there. But I really don't feel like it's all that out of line bordering a Frisbee golf course and a lawn care maintenance yard. So, right, enough listening to me, but I'd entertain any questions, or I obviously can clarify anything that you need. Again, you know, this was all conceptual. I've dealt with, you know, planning before, not necessarily in this city, but it was always a conceptual thing, knowing that as long as I could put this thing here when I go to the building department afterwards, well, when I put that thing there, it's going to be up to code because all those codes come out after the proposed site plan is approved. So if there's anything that is missing, I'm happy to add that now, but anything that's missing will be coming out prior to, you know, shovel hitting the ground. So any questions, anything that needs clarifying? You know, we're not going to be there to disrupt the neighborhood. And, you know, I would like to maybe throw this out there, maybe you guys that have, you know, dealt with the codes in the city longer than me. I can imagine that when the zoning was laid out, we have SR zoning that is this band or belt almost around the inner R1, 2, and 3 zoning for the city. And this SR zoning, as designed, is this belt of mixed uses where you could have a campsite here. You have a little bit larger farm animals. I could have a horse on that property. I'm not going to have a horse on an R3 lot, right? This band around the city has been broken by the zoning change when the lodge was built. And so if anyone's property value is being hindered or depreciated through zoning or uses, it's probably the former owner of my property that didn't realize that when the zoning was changed for the building of the lodge, that there were actually potentially, you know, bringing in a neighbor that was going to squawk about uses that have been laid down and would make more sense if there was not a hotel parked right there. And it'd be fun to find out exactly when all those zoning changes happened, but you know, it's 20 years ago, you know, if there was a campsite on that property already 20 years ago, utilizing the zoning that is allowable, it probably would have stayed, I'm assuming. So again, I'll zip it. And if you guys have any questions, just I'm happy with conditions that make you all comfortable with approving this and setting up some sort of precedence. I know that, August, that's important to you going forward, looking at other SR zoning properties, being to come up with a precedence if you had to ever apply this to another property. I'm happy to entertain or listen to what you guys are comfortable with to make your life easier moving forward.
Very good. Thank you, What? All right, I'll close the public meeting and open the deliberation. But what are you guys thinking?
Mr. Chair, just before you proceed, I just want to make sure you understand, in 2014, when Terra LLC sought that conditional use permit there, they did do a full SEPA. It was required and it was in the minutes when it got approved back in July of 2014. So just that property's had that done before when somebody came to you for a conditional use permit and you asked them to do that. Just historical information. I'm not taking a position, I'm just letting you know what the problem is.
What were they requesting use for?
Well, it was requesting use for the 10 lots, just like Wes described.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But they were required to do that. They put their application in September of 13 and didn't get approved until July of 14.
Was that part of a, lot size requirement? Because it was more than 4 sites?
Looking for the minutes to actually find the actual app.
I think it was for homes.
That was
the
what the
10 lot?
original CUP was.
Yeah, because the SEPA exemption is for 4 or less. So if you have
Right.
4 or more, you're required to have a SEPA.
So that-
Right, that's what, and I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out, a SEPA was required for
Yeah.
that project when that application was
Yeah,
submitted.
because it's totally different product.
I think the number is what caused that trigger.
Mhm.
And again, it's the difference between a small, lot proposal and a bigger one. So 4 is kind of like that threshold number. So,
Understood, but from the
Yeah.
city standpoint, I'm just making sure
Got
we're
it.
not gonna be arbitrary and
Yep.
capricious in any manner. If we required a SEPA for a certain condition that was required, and we're not requiring one here, that opens the city up.
And that's, and that is a good point because I don't have the historical knowledge since I just started practicing here. And we just started using our online documentation, where going forward now we can look up everything really conveniently instead of digging through archives, which, I haven't been able to do.
right.
So yeah, that's why, if somebody brings something up that we find, we can address it.
So my assessment is that historically, because it passed that 4 and over threshold, that's where the SEPA was required. So the previous count did follow what the,
Mhm.
procedure had been, so.
I think another argument was when the lodge did the glamping tents or the tree houses, they had to do one. But again, the interpretation of the exemptions may have been different, like the overall square footage of all those glamping tents may have been different than Wes's. I don't know, I haven't sat down and looked at it.
Correct.
Yeah, I just went by what I was looking at in front of me.
Thanks.
Well,
Yeah.
are you ready to do a little discussion here? Tony's not here tonight and he did some work on this, so that's regrettable, but the three.
Wasn't here, but.
Yeah, but we have a quorum and I think we should try to make a decision. This has been a fairly lengthy process and, Mr. Houston's gone to some trouble and expense to try to meet our requirements, and we got to decide, whether he has or hasn't. And I think that would be humane to decide it one way or the other. I guess I have a couple of other editorial comments, if you'll indulge me. One, I think it's our job to apply our land use criteria and to not get all tangled up in SEPA. As somebody who used to work for a consulting firm, I have some opinions about SEPA, and I think it does a great job of employing consultants, but I'm not sure if it does much good in land use. And it's our job to apply our 4 criteria as best we can, and to our best judgment against what has evolved in this proposal. My other editorial comment is about traffic studies. Also a great opportunity for consultants, but doesn't actually end up meaning very much. If you think about it, if this proposal were to generate 200 trips a day, that's a car, and they were all trips in the daytime that nobody drove at night. That's a car every 3 minutes. Take your watch and go stand by a road and count 3 minutes and see if that's anything to worry about. So traffic analysis most of the time is an opportunity to argue, but doesn't actually mean much. Having said all that, I'll maybe start the ball rolling if we want to towards a decision. I have been really trying to find a way to approve this proposal, and I think that from Tony's comments in our earlier discussion, I had the sense he was too. And I've come around to believing that we should deny it. That Mr. Houston again has tried hard to meet the criteria, but I don't think he has, and I'm not sure that any proposal like this on this property with this many camping sites on this small a parcel with this steep a slope and all the other issues that it has, I'm not sure if it's possible. It's not our job to approve or criticize Mr. Houston's business plan. or, the good effort that he's made in this, but a conditional use permit goes with the property, not with the person. And so we have to decide that no matter who owns this property, that this use is okay. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I've come around is, again, I think you, Mr. Houston, have really tried hard to be responsible here. But our process has to assume that you don't own the property anymore and that the conditional use is still there, because I don't believe it attaches to a person. I believe it attaches to the site. So, for all those reasons, I think we should deny the application rather than continue to struggle to come up with a version of the conditions that a majority of us can live with. That's where I am.
Thanks, Charles.
You, Charlie. I agree with Charlie. This has been a struggle. You put a lot of work into it, and I do know that, and I appreciate that. We've heard from neighbors who are concerned. You have a neighbor on 3 sides of your property that is concerned. And this is a first time any type of conditional permit in a residential zone for a campsite, which was your concern. So we really have to take all of the 4 things that he talked about: public health and safety, which property values, which a neighbor brought up, harmony in the area, which Mary brought up. It's quiet. It is very quiet out there. It's homes on property. And regarding the comp plan zoning and all, as much as the lodge is somewhat like that, the lodge is different zone than SR zone. So I would deny as well.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, since I'm serving as chair, it diminishes my ability to be the naysayer, but I think, as I've said before, I mean, this is a precedence. It is an allowable use for this zoning area. And so my concern would be to do it in the most responsible, lightest way going forward, so that it created a precedence of thoughtful decision making. As Wes pointed out, a lot of the details of specific things are determined on the building plan and the permitting process there. So it's not our purview to get really caught up in specific numbers beyond density or things like that. That is something that we consider in a very cursory examination of anything in the state of Washington that would be similar to this. Ferndale, Washington has some in-city campgrounds. They had some limitations on number of sites per acre. And so that set the specific size. I believe there was one other county that had some specific details on campgrounds in areas that, again, set limits on the number that were allowed in certain areas. Other than that, the state of Washington has no thing that we can look at or any other jurisdiction for any guidance. So it kind of puts a lot of onus on us to make the best decision that we can moving forward. Again, this is an allowable conditional use. That's the way that it's stated in our plan. And, as we go through the findings, and the standards that's acceptable, again, getting caught up in the specifics, whether there's going to be hops there or not, has no effect on the fact that it's an application for a campground. So what he's doing, how many chickens he wants to have, that doesn't affect the decision either. So we just have to look at it purely in the sense that he's requesting the ability to be able to put in what is permittable in the area. And as far as compatibility, this closest neighbors is the Skamania Lodge. The structure that's closest to them is the maintenance building. And so it, as a transitional area between residential and what I would consider a commercial venture, was what the lodge is. I think this creates a really nice buffer for that. And that's in planning. I like to see buffer areas between incompatible uses. And so I think this does meet a lot of those concerns of incompatibility between one area and another. It is not right up against other residences. It's like I say, its closest neighbor is very commercial in nature. And so in my assessment, what's being requested is not a far stretch. And certainly the aspects of how many sites, that's something that certainly we could discuss and put a number to that if that was a concern. I think the applicant's been very willing to address all of the concerns that we've had. At the first meeting, we directed him to look into his sewage plan. And so he went and talked to the health department. So at every step, he's shown that he's very much willing to do whatever is required and necessary to create a safe environment. So I don't see any detriment to public health being created by this or an incompatibility. I don't see a depreciative value of neighbors' properties. And so that's kind of where I stand. I would be in favor of approval of this proposal. So that's where my opinion is.
And obviously, as we discussed, Mr. Breckles here is an ex officio from city council, so he can certainly provide input, comments, but he's not a voting member of your commission tonight.
Do you have any thoughts?
I am reluctant to see this approved simply because of the precedent I believe that it sets in a residential district. That would be my biggest concern. If it were zoned tourist commercial or something along that line, I think you'd have a different case to make. Yeah, it may be a reasonable approach to take, but I worry again, as I look at how we're trying to deal with these types of commercial uses in our residential zones. And we had several of them that have sort of emerged and receded in some cases. But I think we need to be attentive of what are we trying to maintain in terms of the character and nature of our residential neighborhoods. You know, are we going to allow those commercial uses? If we're going to allow commercial uses under what conditions? If I look at where you as the planning commission have been when I was there, we were talking about vacation rentals. You know, this stands kind of in stark contrast to what we were looking at in terms of allowing for vacation rentals and how we were trying to protect the nature of the neighborhoods, but still allow folks, if they have that capacity, to be able to have a vacation rental and make a little money. So it is a difficult decision. I've known Wes, you know, we've worked together on a number of things. I think he's put a lot of work in on it. And maybe we should have come to this conclusion earlier on. But I think right now, certainly as the proposal stands now in terms of the details, I don't think you have sufficient information to be able to make those findings to approve. Could you? I don't know.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, like I said before, I understand that this is residential zoning in the comprehensive plan. This is an allowable use within that zoning. It is not an R1, it's not an R2. It is specific to this zoning, which is a very uh, suburban exterior light kind of thing. And so, again, I have a lot of difficulty in seeing how this does not follow the intention of the comprehensive plan or fall under the details that would be in this type of zoning as a residential of an SA. So that's, again, that's kind of where I sit. Does anybody have any questions for any of the people in attendance here? Any other discussion between members on the committee?
Well, I don't have any more questions for the applicant, but August, I think we should make a decision and outvote you if that's the case, because I think we need to get, and partly to be a kindness to Mr. Houston, so he doesn't keep spending time and money to try to get over a hump that he's not going to get over. I don't know how Tony would vote if he were here, but there are three of us and it's a quorum, and I'm not trying to be harsh or hasty, but we've worked on this a long time, and maybe we did you a disservice, Mr. Houston, by trying to work with you. But I still think that the question for us is, in our opinion, and I heard yours, August, and it's valid, that's your opinion, but in our opinion, each of us, does this meet the four criteria? I'm particularly hung up on the harmonious one. It's our vision of what's harmonious that counts here. Yes, neighbors' testimony matters for it and against it, but it's, do we think it's harmonious? And I can't get to it there. And so again, I would, if you're ready for a motion, I'd make a motion to deny. And then again, if it passes, then that sends a signal that Mr. Houston can either go back to the drawing board or come up with a different plan for the property.
Okay, I hear a motion.
I second motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in disfavor? The aye.
Hey, August,
Yes.
it looks like Tony just got it, and he's raising his hand.
You can take him off mute because he's a member.
Yeah.
Tony's here. Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry about my late arrival here. I would vote the same way to deny. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Tony, thank you.
Okay. So the application is denied. All right. Moving on. So number 3 is Planning Commission application. I believe we have 2 applicants.
There we go.
All right.
It is Tracy. Is that your name, sir?
I'm Brian Ripple.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. So
Time on this.
I guess since we didn't get to hear from you last meeting,
Yeah,
why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at and your concerns and.
yeah. First off, sorry I couldn't make the last meeting, had a previously scheduled work trip, and so thank you for postponing the vote. Although if I'd known at the time that Tracy was going to be the other candidate, I would have said, you should just appoint her. So whatever happens, we'll be each other's biggest cheerleaders. But just a little, I'll just sort of summarize what I said in my application. I moved to Stevenson a little over 6 years ago now, just in time for COVID shutdown, March 2020. That's when I started doing a lot of walking around town. So some of you have probably seen me walking either by myself or with 1 or 2 dogs. But so walkability in town is one of my interests. As I'm walking, when I see empty houses, empty storefronts, frustrates me on multiple levels. And so, I think just, an economic development element,
I think I mentioned in there, I'm a former CPA, so I tend to look at things through a fiscal lens, and then I'm also a long time in the nonprofit sector, so community benefit. And so in moving here, I just, part of the move here, my wife and I moved here for largely for the natural amenities, but we also made a commitment. We wanted to try to find opportunities to contribute, and not just take advantage of the amenities out here. So I saw the opening, had a couple friends suggest I should consider applying for it. Thought it might be a good fit for my skill set and experience. Would be happy to serve. But I don't think you can go wrong with either choice.
Appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions? Ann, Charles, Tony, now that you're here?
No questions. I agree with that statement. I said at last meeting that these are two really good applicants. And if one of us would resign, maybe it should be me. We could put them both on, but otherwise we have to pick one.
And a reminder to the commission, again, you're gonna make a recommendation. Your city council will take your recommendation and approve or disapprove of the recommendation. So you may get one of the other ones, depending on how the city council chooses to vote.
Not bad to have someone on the bench waiting for an opening too.
Yeah.
I have no questions. Both are very qualified.
All right. Well, shall we deliberate a little?
Sure.
Okay. What's everyone thinking?
Right, you have to be here.
Got a coin?
Step out if you want, but
It's not an executive session.
if you get on your phone, you can watch online anyway. Entirely up to you.
Go outside, watch on your phone.
Yeah. Then you don't have to see it yourself.
No, it's a hard
Got a
decision.
coin?
In my
Got
opinion,
a
they're
coin?
both.
Oh, sorry. I would talk over you, Ann. Sorry. I was gonna
That's
say,
okay.
got
Go
a
ahead,
coin? We
Charlie.
could flip a coin, No, I'm being
Yeah.
playful.
Well, I will point out, maybe you would like a little more gender balance on the committee.
Well, that's noble, and thank you for pointing it out.
I have another solution too, we need two people from the Stevenson general area right now for the county. So,
Just so you're clued in though, the county won't pay you. You get $75 a meeting if you come to the city. So I'm gonna throw some money around for the county. Yeah?
Like, now we're gonna arm wrestle.
Yeah. Just saying it's a mighty check. Is it 75 or do we?
Well, I never get that because the taxes are taken out.
Yeah.
6802 or something.
Yes.
Yeah, so the net is maybe a PRG dinner with your wife if you don't have too many.
Spend it downtown. Yeah.
Originally, it paid for the sewer bill. But it does not do that anymore.
That was then.
That one hurt. That was a good one.
What have you interested in the county versus the city?
I feel pretty committed to the city, even though Mandy, I would love to work with Mandy. I just.
Okay.
because I've
You get to work
worked-
with her anyway.
Yeah, fair enough.
Either way.
I feel a little more committed and familiar. I've done work with the city processes before. I was part of the sewer committee, and just it feels a little more in service, right? Just closer to home.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
We can use him at the renovating the Grange. Grace needs money people.
Many people.
CPA.
Is that who hit me up for the nonprofit that I'm supposed to draft for you?
Yes.
Okay, I was wondering where that came from. Grace.
do you guys want to do secret ballot?
We can lead.
Tony, any thoughts,
Yes.
questions?
Yes, I worked with Brian on the board at the museum and found him to be an exceptional addition to that board. He has some excellent insight into finance and the workings of a committee and it was a great experience there. I think both candidates are very qualified. So it is a difficult decision to try to choose one of them, but I guess we must.
All right.
I
So,
agree. We're very helpful.
I'm trying to remember the last time we had to do this and what,
It was Charlie and Tony.
Yeah.
We both ended up anyway.
my original one, Jeff was one, there were like 6 of us that were originally applying. And so he was gracious enough to come back again and reapply and
Okay, can I offer this? I think part of my application was just wanting to ensure that there was a committed person, who would be engaged, in caring about the community. And I feel like we have that in this case. And so I am fine with stepping aside and I can find another place for.
Mary's, you better get on it.
Yeah.
And Mary's.
And Tony, don't take that the wrong way. But, honestly, and really, when I was reading the minutes from last meeting, I was reading your letter and I was thinking, you're more qualified for this than I am. So I think it's a nice problem to have 2 people who are very interested in serving and I think 2 strong candidates, but I would be very fine with making space and waiting for the next opportunity.
Yes, sir, Mr. Reckles. Well, I'm not gonna weigh in on a candidate since I'll be.
You have a
You have to-
decision to
yeah,
make.
you
This
vote
is
on it,
next
yeah.
one.
But I can't, but if I recall correctly, and Tony, remind me, when you applied, we didn't have a position and you had sort of as a substitute member, I think, we had
He
some
was on the
designation.
waiting list.
He was on the
He
waiting.
was on the waiting
Yeah.
list, yeah, for a position.
When I applied the first time, Charlie applied as well. And Charlie was chosen and I was made an ex officio at that time. And then the second time when the vacancy came up, there was only myself, which, well, let me see, I lost the first one and I was the only one running the next time. So that says a lot about my candidacy. But
We called and begged you though, didn't we?
But I think we have that option also at an ex officio.
And I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around. So I don't mind waiting on the bench until my turn comes up.
this is such a gracious interchange.
Do we
No
need to have
kidding.
a motion and send it on to city council or?
You just make a recommendation, so it's not necessarily a motion, but amongst you, just go, we would like to nominate Tracy or Brian, and then.
I would entertain a recommendation.
There you
How
go.
about that?
I recommend that we nominate Tracy to the city council to hopefully get voted into the position.
I'll second that.
All right, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would, and I would hope that Brian would be gracious enough to wait in the wings as it is, since every now and then we do have an open ability.
Yeah.
We certainly appreciate
Be
your,
happy if you'd keep me on file.
we appreciate your interest and, everyone's interest, and I wish more people came to our meetings. Sometimes we're the only ones here. I think as a community, I think everybody should be involved as best they can. Obviously, we're not gonna mandate that everyone show up or your sewer fees are gonna go up. But, yeah, no, I really like seeing involvement and people who are willing to be involved. So, thank you for applying.
Yeah, well, thank you for considering me and again for waiting a month and
Hey,
Yeah,
Brian,
well,
what's your-
Here,
what's your-
Brian, I hope you do continue your interest. Yeah. Yes, sir. I was going to say, Brian, I hope you do continue to be interested in what the planning commission's doing and stay on deck for when there is an opening. Because I think, again, it's a splendid misery for us to have these two good people show up and say they both would like to be on this committee with us. But I hope you continue that interest and like Tony, come back, at the playoffs and win.
I will. Yeah, I will definitely stay informed and engaged. So I'll be around.
Well, you can also take a chair next to Mary and join our meeting on a regular basis. We always miss when Mary is unable to attend.
May I add one more comment? When
Absolutely.
I was appointed as an ex officio position, the ex officio position at that time was treated as a kind of a pinch hitter that would only be brought into a meeting if a quorum was necessary. But in researching what an ex officio position was usually the case, it was more like you were just a non-voting member of the commission. Yes.
Yeah.
And what I was hoping is that we would change the way we treated an ex officio position to move that into a member of the planning commission, just a non-voting member, so that that person became part of the conversation and debate similar to any other commission member. But that's just food for thought at this point, and we would have to vote on doing that at a later date, I would guess.
Well, we can't, it would be nice, but we can't actually have an alternate, right? We can't have an alternate member who can vote when one of us is absent. I don't think we get to do that. It would be nice, but somebody help me out with that.
That's
No, your bylaws prohibit it.
Yeah, bylaw.
I think the only thing that occurred that I can recall is that we did make a change in the number of commissioners. It went before the city council and they actually decreased our number and brought our ability to have a quorum up. So because we were short a person, we found ourselves not being able to meet a quorum. And so we eliminated one position, and don't ask me how many years ago this was, but the current number is one less than when I originally came on. But that would have to be a proposal that goes to city council. I believe that it was initiated by city staff.
So, but how does that manifest itself then? Because I'm fairly certain the way I described it as a sit-in voting member is the way it is presented in the bylaws. If we actually had an ex officio person who acted as a non-voting member unless a quorum was needed, wouldn't that be to the planning commission's benefit?
It does satisfy, I mean, currently we've always had an ex officio. And I know at one particular instance, they were brought in to do a vote because we did not have a quorum. And so there is some history to that situation. I don't know that we can, I don't know that that's a decision that we can make here, or if it's something that needs to go through city council.
Yeah, it'd have to be a code revision. Well, just per your bylaws, ex officio members appointed to the commission by the mayor are non-voting members, except as discussed in one of the RCWs. Just that's in the current bylaws, which we revised in 2009.
So non-voting.
Yes.
So it says it's never a voting member then?
Ex officio members do not have voting rights. The only reason, the reason why we have city council appoint an ex officio to the commission is in case you need a quorum. That is the one time that they can vote.
So does that then does not address whether the ex officio member is
Is
a
that a
sitting
workshop
member
meeting?
of the
Is that-
planning commission.
One more time, Tony, sorry.
I said it does not address whether the ex officio member is a sitting member of the planning commission. I believe that it was interpreted previously that that member would not be a sitting member, as Jeff is right now, but he would only be brought in for a vote. And I think it would be to our benefit if we made that position a sitting member of the position that had non-voting rights unless a quorum was permitted. That solves both you can actually end up with another person on the commission that is only votes if a quorum is necessary.
But
Does that make any
that's
sense?
already the position we have, except for Jeff can't vote because he's on city council, so.
Right.
He's here as an ex officio, but not as a potential voting ex officio, I believe. That's the way that the law works.
So we still have room for a.
So the mayor would have to designate a second or an ex officio, and Jeff could just come as a guest and sit in the small chairs.
We have extra big chairs. We could move one forward.
Sit down there at the end without a name plaque. Nothing personal, Jeff.
So I have a question. Tracy will need to go to city council meeting. Would that be the one on Thursday, or does she have to wait a month for it to go on the agenda?
No, she'll be on the agenda.
Thursday.
Yeah, perfect.
Get it on the-
So you do realize that, Tracy?
Our meeting.
You need to go introduce yourself to city council.
What time, what, no?
Thursday.
Thursday, I'll put you on the front of the agenda.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
Does that work for you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm.
Since we're throwing dates at you now?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Just so we're clear, but not this Thursday, that'd be the second Thursday, it's the 21st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Before everybody leaves, I just want to thank you all, since it's my first time working with you. You work really hard. You guys all really do take it very seriously and put everything you should into it. You know, I've worked with some that don't, and so I greatly appreciate it. I know the city's lucky to have you all. You're awesome.
Well, thank you. Back at you. I thought the staff work on this proposal was very good by both of you. So both of you did a nice job of supporting us in this deliberation.
Once our emails worked.
Oh,
Yeah, you jumped through hoops. I appreciate it.
I think you just need to recreate mine. I will be happy to change my name
We're talking about emails, Tony and Charlie.
because I still
Still not getting it.
yeah. So,
I'll look at Daniel.
I'm not either, but I'm going to wait till I get back to town next week and do it by bringing my laptop into City Hall.
yeah. But I think we can probably just create a new account, and that would solve a lot of the problems, because it's the transition that got us all flummoxed.
Good word.
All right, well, any other notes of the month? Concerns? Mary, any last minute?
Yes, I have Rainier cherry trees, if anybody wants one. I grew them from pits, and I have horse chestnuts and eating chestnuts and plum trees that I had to dig out of the yard so I wouldn't mow them. I don't kill anything anymore. And so if anybody needs some trees, I've got trees for you, and hawthorn trees too,
I will see you after.
and maple trees.
I just wanted to make one comment. I know this has been very difficult for everyone and a lot of work, and I appreciate how patient you've been and the fact that you listened to our comments, you've not cut us off, and been really open to what's best is a really good thing, and you should be very proud of that. These are not easy decisions for sure, so understand.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, we are adjourned.
Look forward to seeing you live and in person next month, guys.
Oh, are we gonna get to see you?
Yeah, the real thing, not just a face on the screen. I got a haircut too. See you then.